course there's a plane, right? As soon as I press record. Planes. Hello and welcome back to Cuckoo for Books. My name is Salva and today I'm going to be doing a book review on Fireborne by Rosaria Munda. So my friends at Fully Booked were kind enough to send me this copy, so I'm really excited to talk about this book with you guys today. I love this book so much, I want to make this review spoiler free because I want people to not be afraid to watch this review and then be inspired to read the book. I'm gonna start this off with talking about the things I didn't like about this book because trust me, they are very minuscule. Like, I swear, it was a perfect book. I will have a hard time deciding which is my top book of the year. But anyway, digressing, back on track, Salva. Okay, two quick things I didn't like about this book. Sometimes, and there were only two instances that I caught this, she would use contemporary or anachronistic language in a fantasy book that was supposedly set in ancient Rome. The characters saying smart ass and like piss off, the British piss off, that shouldn't be here. But other than that, that's the only complaint I had regarding the language used. And I don't know if this was changed because this is an advanced copy, so it might have been changed in the final version, but I did find the back and forth because we do get dual POVs. They are both based in the same place, living in the same building, going through the same training, facing the same problems. It was a bit confusing at the beginning, especially she would switch POVs mid-chapter. It was a little excessive in my opinion, but that's me being nitpicky. Like, it didn't really take away from the telling of the story. I just got confused for a bit. Those are the only notes I have about this book, like legit. The rest is like, I love this book. I could run around in a circle talking about how much I love this book. Oh, hallelujah. So I'm just gonna dive into the backstory of this book just so you and I are on the same page. Based on the author's note at the end of this book, this is a fantasy world based on Plato's The Republic. So we're talking founding of Rome way back in ancient times, and it was also based off of the Aeneid. Our Rome in this world is called Callipolis. And one of the interesting things about this book is that it's already set in a post-revolution time. Say if this were the Hunger Games, Katniss has already come in and done her thing. In Divergent, what's her face? I don't remember how it ends, okay? But like, the revolution is done. The bad guys are supposedly defeated. If this is already the supposed happy ending, where do we go from here? So I think that's what made this book very interesting, and this was precisely the kind of book that knew where it was in the timeline of young adult books. I feel like the author went into writing this book thinking, I know you've probably been through 1001 training montages, 1001 scenes of our protagonist living in an orphanage before she gets whisked away. This is 2020. Young adult has been a very solid genre for the past decade or so. So I feel like the author was like, I'm not gonna put you through that. We're gonna skip through that and I'm gonna find a story of my own within the same fantasy standards. I can't believe I missed out on saying this in the intro, but there are dragons in this book. Our two protagonists are Lee and Annie. Both of them led very different lives pre-revolution. Lee is an heir to one of the dragon lords. He was born to be one of the rulers of the city. Annie was a former serf. If life had continued pre-revolution, she should never have been allowed to ride a dragon, not only because she was a peasant, but because she was a woman, and there were no woman dragon riders. Post-revolution, they are both training to become dragon riders because they were chosen by said dragons. So the author was like, I'm gonna start this book, I'm gonna chuck you guys straight into a dragon tournament. You don't need to see the preparations. We've been through How to Train Your Dragon. You know that. You know how those moments go. Here, have dragons battling each other on like page 3. That's another thing I love about this book. It's not trying to be the next YA sensation. It's very simple, straightforward. The prologue is like one page back to back. It's not trying to be over flowery and over dramatic. It's the author saying, I'm going to try to write a nice story as best as I can. I don't need the frills. I don't need to imagine what this would be like if it were optioned into a major motion picture. It's straight to the point and it manages to tell us a really dang good story. Not to mention, I genuinely thought, because of everything I've said, I was like, I've seen dragons before. I'm not gonna be blown away. Dragon tournaments, yeah, sure, whatever. No, dragons are still pretty freaking cool. This was the only fantastical element in the entire book. The book actually reads more like a political drama than, you know, a fantasy war and magic. There is no magic in this book. Now that we're talking about the political intrigue in this book, the new regime involves aptitude tests. There are 4 classes in this book: gold, silver, bronze, and iron. Iron classes are the unskilled laborers, so miners, people who work in textile factories, and then you've got bronze who are the skilled laborers, artists, bakers. Silver is the military, and gold is fancy people, philosophers, and the elite. What I really love about this book is right from the off, it doesn't pretend that this is a utopia. You already know from the beginning, even the leader of the supposed revolution, you know from the first page, you're like, he's kind of shady, but he's not like a mustache twirling villain. There is no huge overarching villain in this book. It's just the villains are humans, because humans are typically, without the help of magic, humans are pretty crappy. And that's what this book focuses on. Humanity at war. Crap. It doesn't try to win you over at the beginning like, oh yes, this new regime is magical for everyone. You can call it what you want. The aptitude tests still don't make a fair democracy, because people who are born in positions of privilege have the capacity to go to the right schools, their parents teach them what they know, and therefore whenever they take aptitude tests in this world, they end up still staying rich, and the poor who don't have time to study or don't have the resources stay where they are. One of the quotes from the book was like, are they really talented, or are they born with access to training that makes them talented? Another thing I really love about the world building in this book is that I think it's the first time I've seen language in a fantasy setting used not only to describe like, hey, we're from different kingdoms, but this time it's a way to signify classes in one kingdom alone. In the land of Callipolis, there are two languages, Dragon Tongue and Kalish. Dragon Tongue is supposed to be like the language used in poetry, and it's the language that elites use, and Kalish is the language that the lower classes use. I don't know, it like really reminded me of how people like in the Philippines are like, oh, if you speak English, you must be smarter than those who don't. People are learning bit by bit. That's legit not the case. But for the longest time, that was the sort of colonial mentality our country had. And that was the first time I saw it in a fantasy setting. Whenever they come across elites in this book, even though they know the national language is Kalish, they'll still like be stubborn and use the elite language of Dragon Tongue. I really loved how the author wielded language to better highlight the political situation in her world, and I think she used it really, really effectively. Another aspect of her books that I think had a really solid real life counterpart was at the beginning of the book, they massacre the old regime, who were these like power-hungry dictators, right? A lot of people in the years succeeding, they treat that whole day a massacre. They say, it's the day we won our freedom, it's a celebration. Those who know better, they're like, yeah, we won our freedom, but let's not forget, it was still a massacre of innocents, because not only did they kill the dictators, but they also killed the children and the other members of their family. There's a difference between patriotism for your country and just blindly endorsing violence. I just think other people in real life need to learn that lesson. Okay, moving on. So I'm not gonna say who, so it's not a spoiler. This book has a childhood friends to lovers romance, which literally could be any of the teen protagonists or teen characters in this book. They all start learning how to be dragon riders from like the age of 8 and up, so they're all childhood friends. There was this quote that I feel like should be in the dictionary as the definition of childhood friends to lovers, and it is, the rush of old comfort thrilling with new danger. I'm just like, oh, so beautiful, and it sent me chills. And actually the whole finally they kiss moment, I was like, ooh, I got that. I like that. I like that a lot. Ooh. Because I'm not doing spoilers, let's go straight into talking about the characters. Would I die for the two protagonists? No. I don't think of them as my little sister or my future husband or a precious teddy bear that I gotta protect. But do I understand every motivation and every choice they made in this book? Yes. And I think that's just such a mark of good storytelling. So many authors make this mistake. They want to have this character have conflicting aspects of their own identity. Instead of making it seem like they're a well-rounded, well-developed character, they're just like, oh, this character can't make up their mind. This author pulled it off. So sometimes these characters went back and forth with their decisions. They changed their minds. They had conflicting parts of themselves. It just came across as, yeah, because they're human. The characterizations were so well done. I do want to talk about Annie a little bit more, because I feel like her character arc was a lot more defined, despite being a former serf in her childhood, and despite her childhood being the primary motivation between a lot of her choices in this book. The book never veered toward poverty porn. Like, she's asked, don't you feel sad about your past? Like, your whole family was executed by dragonfire. And she's like, yeah, it hurts and the pain is there, but it was so long ago, and she's coming into her own identity away from her past. But there is one line that really broke my heart. She was with a friend who was with their siblings, younger siblings, and he was trying to put them to sleep. It was bedtime. He reads them a bedtime story, and then she was like, what is he doing? Why is he using different voices? I don't understand what he's doing. And then you realize it's because coming from a peasant family, her parents were illiterate and could never read her bedtime stories. Therefore, she doesn't know the tradition of putting on different voices to do different characters and stories. And then your heart just breaks into a million pieces for her, right? But that's it. That's it. She doesn't wallow, and neither will I. That's why I'm moving right on, but I just wanted to point that out. But she never wallows in her, oh, woe is me, poor me childhood. She's always trying to rise above it. She learns to come into herself. Like at the beginning of the book, she never raises her hand at class, even though she does the homework diligently. She probably knows the answer. She doesn't feel like she is allowed to take up that space. There was no big dramatic, you know, Braveheart speech of like, oh, I'm the Mockingjay, I'm a leader, girl power, woo. There are no big dramatic moments like that. She doesn't wake up and snap her fingers and suddenly she's a confident badass. No, she works at it. It's not a perfect evolution yet. There's a scene towards the end of the book, contextless, so no spoilers, but this other person in the scene asks her, why would you want to lead the Dragon Riders? She gives so many reasons, like, oh, because my grades are good. And then she realizes she doesn't have to want it because she wants to be a revolution leader. She doesn't have to want it because she has like a million justifications. She just says, I want it because I know I'd be good at it. I love her evolution, and I can't wait to see her in the sequel, this brand new Annie. Now that we're talking about the sequels, there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. This is my #1 complaint when reading books of series, and I've talked about this so many times, even when I say this book is amazing, except this thing. I feel like nowadays authors use the idea of getting a series contract to, okay, I'll just spread one story out over multiple books. That's not what sequels are for. That's not what trilogies are for. You're supposed to tell one cohesive story in one book and then have a thread that connects it to the sequels. And this book, honestly, the story is so complete in itself. This was about 432 pages. I think had the author been given 450, she would have been able to write a standalone. Boom, just like that, finished. This is more of what we need in fantasy series. Don't rely on 3 books to tell one story. Oh, goodness, I love this book. I just really do. I hate using the word smart. I don't want to say, oh, if you're looking for a smart fantasy book, pick this up. I don't necessarily think swashbuckling fantasy adventures aren't smart, but I suppose if you're looking for books that are less magic and less adventure and epic moments and more of quiet, understated revelations, if you're looking for those kinds of books, super recommend picking this up. But on that note, that about does it for my Fireborne book review. You can follow me on my other bookish adventures on Twitter and Instagram. Also, a side note, I also have a new theme going on Bookstagram, so if you want to go check that out, please follow. They're both at Cuckoo for Books. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys!